Hi, you guys. I hope that this is working. I'm going to head over to Facebook before we get started and make sure that everybody knows where to find us. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to share some things that I have never really shared before for a number of different reasons. Okay, I'm posting the link. And we'll get started in about 2 minutes. Okay, so thank you guys so much for being here and hanging in through the technical difficulties. This is why I don't do webinars too often because there's so many moving pieces, especially with Google Hangouts. However, I wanted to do this live because I want to be here with you as I share this information, and I want to hear any questions that you may have. The whole purpose of this training is for me to be able to be more transparent and vulnerable than I've ever been on a business level before. So I'm really excited about it. I'm a little bit nervous. I don't know if when you hear people do webinars, they tell you how different it is from actually speaking to a live audience. So normally I'm talking to people and I can see them in front of me, but right now I'm looking at a little green dot on my computer and imagining that there's somebody on the other side, but I really don't know if there's somebody on the other side. And if someone is there, I can't see you. I can't engage with you in the way that I would like. However, there are a lot of things that we can do together in this space. And so what I would love for you to do is go over to the Make It Rain community and engage with me there so that I know that you are here with me on this journey as I'm doing something that I've never done before. Make sure I have a lot of communities with me tonight. I didn't even send this out on my email list. I wanted it to be a close-knit community of people that know, like, and trust me. So the fact that you decided to be here today lets me know that you might be one of those people. And I said it in a video earlier today that when you share something that you've never shared before, you don't just automatically go and put all your business out on Front Street. You start with the people in the communities that are closest to you first. So that would be my Make It Rain community. That will also be my Midnight Motivation Mastermind community, and some of the other communities that I engage with on Facebook. So I'm going to share with all of you tonight in a way that I have never shared with any of my audiences before. And I'm really happy to be able to do this with you in particular. So tonight we are going to be playing in the Make It Rain Facebook community. So please head over to Make It Rain. You can type that in Facebook and find our group. But that is going to be where we're hanging out live so that we can have that level of engagement that I really want to have with you. So go over there. Let me know the things that you hear that resonate with you. And also, if there are people in your life that you think could benefit from this information, please make sure that you add them. My motto is building wealth together. This is not just about individual growth and personal development. It's also about making sure that we're bringing people along with us. There are too many people who are failing in the areas of financial literacy who don't know what to do and don't know how to do it. And they desperately need access to this type of information. And, you know, I want to build a community of the right type of people. And because I know you guys, I trust who you want to bring in. I have wait list of people who are looking to get into the group, but it takes me time to be able to look through and make sure that they're going to be a good fit. But when you add somebody, I can take your word for it. So go ahead and make sure that you do that. Before we get started, I'm headed over to Facebook, making sure that everything is good. Yes. Hey, okay. Now we're live to go. Now, okay. I have never, ever really shared my story in a very deep way since I have been in business. And it's because, when you think about your personal story, it's not just you. There's so many other actors involved as well. This is not just my story. This is their story as well. And I haven't really been comfortable sharing every aspect of the story for fear that it might shed a negative light on some of the parties involved. However, however, that's something that I want to do tonight. So first of all, I want you guys to know kind of how I got started in this industry. I grew up on the south side of Chicago as a young girl, and I lived in the same community since I was born. And my family, some of my family still lives there to this very day. And I loved it. I loved growing up on the south side of Chicago. I grew up in one of the most impoverished neighborhoods in Chicago. And I just read a report that said that Cook County, Illinois is one of the places that have the lowest upward mobility. So it's the least likely place where people from poverty are going to be able to escape poverty. And so when I found that out, I thought it was very ironic that people say that low-income Black Americans from Cook County will never be able to make it out of their situation. And yet, not only is that what I've done, but it's also what I want to teach other people to do. And it just was a confirmation that, I'm not doing this for no reason. Everything that I've been through has led me up to this point. So I've gone through some of the toughest economic situations and have conquered them and overcome them so that I can teach other people how to do the same thing. Sometimes we think that we have to be born with a silver spoon in our mouths in order to achieve greatness. Or we think that, if we want to achieve financial freedom, we have to have a high-paying job. But really, at the end of the day, all you need is dedication that says, no matter what happens, I will not quit. And I can't wait to share that with you today. Like, you can't even understand how I feel right now. Like, there's literally something in me that just wants to jump out and say everything that I have to say at once. And I feel tears at the back of my eyes, because it's that deep. When I think about what I want for young Americans and Black young Americans in particular, I know that the journey is a difficult one. I know that because I've studied it, and I know that because I have lived it. I have been there in the trenches of poverty, of the most degraded kind, right? Where there was the most integration and the most difficulty in overcoming those challenges, and yet I was able to do it. So when you think about the number of people who are actually able to escape poverty, it's very few. And we live in a world that glorifies this idea of the American dream and upward mobility, but that is absolutely a myth. It is unlikely that people are going to be able to excel beyond the social station of their parents, right? And so all of the Black young adults right now who come from a background that is disadvantaged, or whose parents were from a background who have a low socioeconomic status, according to statistics, you are too. And when I think about that, it makes me sick to my stomach. And that's my goal and my vision, to change that statistic, right? Because I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to achieve financial freedom, and it shouldn't be based on the color of your skin or your past history. It should just be based on what you are willing to do. That's where I have to start. I have to start with me, and therefore I'm going to start with you. When you look in the mirror, What are you doing to make sure that you can achieve financial greatness? Yes, there's so many things that are happening in our country, so much institutional racism that makes it difficult for non-whites to succeed. This is the truth. I understand it, and yet I do not accept that as an excuse. And what I want you to know is that if I could make it as a young girl from Chicago living in the hood, whose parents didn't know anything about managing money and who still struggle to build wealth to this day, still struggle with money. If I can do it, if I can achieve financial freedom and financial security, then I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can too. And that's the conversation that I want to have with you today. Sometimes, I have these conversations with people about why people want to ask me, well, how come you were able to do it? I go to these conferences and I talk to young adults about being able to achieve financial freedom, security, and abundance, and tell them that they can do it too. And then afterwards, I have older adults who come to me and they say, you were able to rise above your situation. How come other people were not able to do that? And when people tell me that, it really makes me angry because they think that rising above your situation is a badge of honor. And indeed it is. But when you don't know what goes into that, you don't know the sacrifice and the struggle that truly goes into that, and you say it so flippantly as if, why can't everybody do it? It makes me upset because it takes, oh my goodness, it takes something deep, deep, deep within you. It takes every ounce of resolve, every bit of your being to be able to rise out of that type of degradation, right? And why would we ask people to be able to do that instead of change? So we want people to be exceptions instead of making sure that the rules are more equitable. So tonight I'm going to tell you about 7 different things that I learned as a young girl growing up on the streets of Chicago, because I did grow up on the streets of Chicago. I can remember playing outside in the summer times, being with my friends, hanging out on the blocks. That's what I did as a young girl. And all of those things have informed my actions as an entrepreneur trying to survive in this, on this journey. And right now, my message is one of what do you do to survive? But eventually that's going to change. Right now I'm focusing on financial freedom and financial security. But soon I'm also going to be focusing on financial abundance. And that's a whole different conversation about how do you take your circumstances and thrive off of them. The very first thing that I can remember growing up as a young girl is counting pennies in my mother's penny jar. So we didn't really have a whole lot of money, but nobody really knew it because everybody in the neighborhood was poor. But I remember that the main money that I had access to was pennies that my mom kept around the house in a penny jar. And a couple times a week, I would pour out all the pennies. Sometimes my sister would help me, and we would stack those pennies in little rows of 10. And then we would stack each row of 10 in a group of 10. And that group of 10 would make $1. And I would continue to line up my pennies, right, to make these dollars. And I realized that even something so small as a penny was instrumentally important in building wealth. Right, so when I was 10 years old, I would do this exercise of counting out my pennies. And I remember the impression that it made on me that even something, no matter how much money you have, it all starts out as a penny. And I knew that if I could have access to pennies, that I could build my way to millions, that nothing could stand in my way, that all of it, it started with something so small and basic as a penny. And the more pennies I could amass, if I had it in me to get pennies, then what could stop me from bringing in millions? It's the same concept. It's all money, right? No matter if you have $1, $10, $100, $100,000, $1 million. The basis of that is one single penny. That's where it all begins. And from that experience of understanding the impact of just a single penny, it let me know that there's no reason to despise small circumstances. It does not matter where you start. It only matters that you continue to build upon where you are and move to the next level. A penny can grow into $1,000,000, right? It can, but you have to continue to build. And so as I began to count pennies, I started thinking about dollars. I started thinking about $10. My concept of money began to grow and expand, and I built upon my ideas of money, right? And before I knew it, I had so much money that my parents would ask me, Tasha, where are you getting all this money from? What are you doing to get all of this money? Now I'm headed to Facebook real quick just to make sure that all is well. I want to make sure I'm not missing you guys. Okay. So eventually I had so much money that I went to open a bank account. And this was something that no one in my family had done before. My parents didn't even have bank accounts. But because the penny planted an idea in my mind of what could be, I went from having pennies to having several $100s and being able to put it into the bank, right? That was something that was completely outside of my realm of possibility if I just looked at what my parents did, because they didn't have bank accounts and they never had hundreds of dollars saved at a time. For them, money was easy come, easy go. That was the example that I saw day in and day out. But the idea was planted from a single penny that if I continued to build and grow and develop, that I could have more. And that, I believe, is where the seed for building wealth was planted. One of the other things that I wanted to share with you is the fact that as a young girl, some of you guys know, okay, all of my people from the Midnight Motivation Mastermind, you might wonder, like, why am I a night owl? So a lot of times I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning doing work, but what you guys don't know is that is deeply rooted in my personal history. Ever since I was young, I knew that I didn't want to stay in a situation that I was born into. I wanted to be able to expose my family to new things. I wanted to be able to experience wealth and the amenities that it had to offer. I knew that I didn't want to stay in the hood for the rest of my life. That was not going to be my story nor my testimony. And so in order to get out of it, I knew that there were two keys to make it out of poverty, make it out of the hood and into a better situation. Number one was education, and number two was money. I stuck very close to both of those things throughout my entire life, and that is exactly why I'm here with you today, always learning and always educating people about money, something that I've done since I was a very, very, very young girl. So when I was 5 years old, right, I knew that education was important. And I wanted to make sure that I was in school learning everything that I possibly could. I mean, I was the biggest nerd, but also very outgoing, and I had a lot of fun with my friends, but there was no limit to my nerdiness. And so much so that my mom, she didn't always take me to school for whatever reason. She didn't value it as much as I did, even though I was 5 years old. And actually I was 4 or 5, and I was in preschool. And I knew that sometimes my mom wasn't going to be able to take me to school. So on those nights that I knew that my mom wasn't going to be able to take me to school, I would stay up all night, all through the night, never going to sleep, to make sure that I could make it to school the next day. So some people take their education for granted, but since the age of 4, I made education such a priority that I would miss out on a whole night's sleep just so that I could be able to go to school the next day, just so that I could wake my mom up and say, hey mom, I need you to walk me to school. Because obviously I couldn't go by myself as a 4-year-old, but I took on that responsibility to say, you know what? I know that school is important. I know that I need to learn. And if I am going to be at the top, if I am going to be at the very best, I need to be present. At 4 years old, this is what I thought to myself because I could see what was going on in my community. And my first grade teacher, her name was Mrs. Crutz, she let me know that education is the ticket to everything. I didn't know what that meant, but I incorporated that into my day-to-day thinking. And I don't know where that drive came from as a preschooler, but I knew that I needed to be in school and that nothing should stand in my way and that I didn't need to make excuses. And I know, and some nights I fell asleep, trying to stay up, trying to go to school the next day. And sometimes I would fall asleep and I would wake up the next day and the sun would be shining. And the first thing I would think would be, dang it, I missed school. And it was such I felt so guilty about it. I felt guilty when I couldn't go to school, even though it's very rare and uncommon for that to be the responsibility of a 4-year-old. So what I want you to understand is that people who are able to build wealth, who are not born with a silver spoon, they do not make excuses. Excuses do not even enter our minds. There is no reason why I cannot do the things that I want to do. There is no reason that I cannot achieve the things that I want to achieve. Nobody has a responsibility to do anything for me but myself. My mom, I'm not going to make it her responsibility to take me to school, because if I do that, what will be the end result? Yes, I can lay blame all day, but what would be the end result? The end result would be I would be just another kid on the south side of Chicago, doing the same old thing, not being able to have the world impact that I want to have. So don't make excuses for yourself. Don't accept excuses from yourself, and don't accept excuses from others. I understand that it's hard. I know that there is a path that you have to forge, and that is going to be difficult. But the way that you do that is to say nothing can stand in my way, and I am the author of my destiny. I am going to be in control of my future. Nobody else has a say of what is going to be my outcomes and my results but me. You have to own that. You have to own that responsibility. It is that responsibility that's going to be the critical difference between you and everybody else. While everybody else is making excuses, you are going to be getting stuff done. Because and some excuses are absolutely true and reasonable and right, and I understand, but I do not care. I don't care. There is always something that you can do to move yourself to the next level. There is always something that you can do to be better. There is always something that you can do to improve and to enhance your situation. Yes, there are a lot of obstacles in your way. Yes, the system is messed up. Yes, there are things that are coming up against you, but we won't use those as an excuse. We will work to change the system simultaneously as we do what we need to do, no matter what those things are. And we won't make excuses. We're the only one. Nobody cares. Look, I'm just going to tell you like this. Nobody cares about you like you care about you. The government is not going to come save you. Nobody is going to do that. And so while you're making all of these excuses for why you coulda, shoulda, woulda, maybe, might have, somebody else is getting it done. Or even scarier, this is even scarier. Nobody else is getting it done. What if that thing that you're supposed to do, that you're making excuses for, nobody else is doing? There is a need in the marketplace that you were meant to feel, but because you're making excuses, because you didn't get the education that you need, because you won't become an expert, because you didn't have money for college, because all of these things, nobody is filling that space. How scary is that? There are people who need what you have to offer, but you're busy making excuses for why you couldn't and why you didn't and why you won't. Leave the excuses behind. If I, as a 4-year-old, can make it to school, make it my responsibility to get myself to school as many days as possible in preschool so that I can get a head start, then you can too. You can do it too. The other thing that I learned is that money doesn't buy happiness. And that might be weird for you to hear me say, because I'm always teaching you about why it's important for you to build wealth and that it is your responsibility to become a millionaire. But then I'm also saying that even with all of that, money itself does not buy you happiness. The only way that you will be able to build wealth is if you become comfortable and complacent with what you have. And what I mean by that, I'm not talking about a sense of complacency. I'm talking about a sense of gratitude that says, I am grateful that I woke up this morning in my right mind, able to see, and with the ability of my limbs. I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. You have to operate from a level of gratitude, because if you don't, that spirit of consumerism will sneak up on you, have you spending money that you don't have, and then you're going to be right back where you started from. And growing up as a young girl in Chicago, we didn't have a lot of money. We were really poor. We were so poor that the apartment complex paid us money so that we could pay our utility bills. But we were very happy. My family was happy. And the other kids on my street, like, we would just go outside and play and, jump rope. I didn't need an iPad to have fun. I didn't need a laptop to have fun. I didn't even need a computer in the house. I didn't need a lot of amenities or a lot of accessories. When you grow up and you don't have a lot of things, we always have the basic necessities. I always had food, water, and shelter, and clothes on my back, a place to lay my head. I had all of those other things. And you know what? That taught me that I can be happy with the basics. And that's what gave me the strength and the courage to leave my job in corporate America. I knew that even if I only had the basics, I would be happy. I would be able to find joy in the gratitude of life alone. If you feel like you need the amenities of life, you're never going to be able to be an entrepreneur, and you're never going to be able to build wealth, because people don't tell you this, but you can either have money or you can spend money, but you cannot do both. You have to build your wealth to the point that you've built the foundation and the house. Most of you guys haven't even built the foundation yet. So you can only spend money, or you can have money, but you cannot do both. Most of you think that you can spend money and then try to save money, and then you can still build the future that you want for yourself. But that's not true. That's the lie of the amenities of the middle class, and we don't realize that it's leading us to a future of poverty. In order to avoid that consumerism, you start from a place of gratitude and being thankful for what you already have, being thankful for the basics, understanding that all of this other stuff is just extra. It's just icing on the cake, but the cake itself is still delicious. It's still amazing. If you can spend time with your family, you can find joy. If you can read a book, you can find joy. If you can learn something new, you can find joy. If you can walk outside on a sunny day, you can find joy. Joy is not found in money. And if you continue to believe that, you're going to deceive yourself in pursuing money. And as you pursue money, you're going to stay broke, because normally people who are pursuing money are often spending money, which is leading them into a place of brokenness. So being a young girl from the hood of Chicago, it taught me that you don't have to have a lot of extra stuff. All you need is your family, food on the table, and clothes on your back. You don't need to have a lot of nice things to be a good person. Right? Lack in your finances does not mean lack in joy, right? We're all working towards something. We're working towards a future. But you have to understand that gratitude is a huge component of that, because we have this shiny object syndrome, that saying that I want this and I want that. I want to continue to amass goods and acquire things. But the more you feed the desire to consume, the more you are going to consume. People don't know this, but building $1 million empire, you don't do that by wanting to live like a millionaire. You do that by being grateful with what you already have, which allows you to amass millions in the bank. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I had that type of upbringing that let me know I don't always have to spend money to be happy. Being with my family gives me joy enough. Being able to experience life gives me joy. Being able to live and experience every moment brings me unimaginable joy. Some people didn't wake up today. Remember that every single day that you're on your $1 million journey, some people didn't wake up. That is extremely important. I cannot drive it home enough. Too many people fail on their journey to becoming a millionaire because they're too busy trying to live like a millionaire. You need to live a life of gratitude in order to experience a life of abundance. So moving on, another thing that I learned as a young girl in Chicago, actually, before I move on, I'm gonna check Facebook. Hey, Markeisha. Let's see. Hi, Shanika. I see you guys. Joya. I appreciate you guys for being on. I'm gonna go into the next topic, which is take advantage of every single opportunity that comes your way. Too often, we let opportunities pass us by. And growing up in Chicago, I learned that I didn't have the luxury of missing opportunities, right? Because I went to a neighborhood school for the first couple years of elementary school. And even after that, once I went to an academic center, I wanted to make sure that I was ahead of the game. I wanted to make sure that I was on top of things. So every summer activity, I was a part of it. Every time I had an opportunity to join a club, I joined it. Every time I had an opportunity to do a special field trip, I did it. Because you want to do those things that are going to elevate you and set you apart from everybody else. Let me tell you why. We know that 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and 70% of Americans are not prepared to retire. What does that tell you? It means that the vast majority of people, the lay people, the regular people, they're living their lives in a way that's leading them straight to dissatisfaction. They're living their lives in a way that's going to lead them straight to poverty. So if you want to go down that path of mediocrity, do what everybody else is doing. But I guarantee you that you're going to end up with what everybody else has. That should scare you. Look at the people around you. Look at what they have and look at what they do. So many people, I won't say everybody, so many people are going through life just doing the same things that they see other people do. You think that you can live the same way, that you can go to the movies with your friends, you can go to eat out with your friends, you can go hang out, go to the club, go drink it up, go party it up with your friends and do everything that they do. And I'm not knocking that, because I want you to have fun. Experiences are so important. I value that. What I want you to understand is that is not doing what everybody else is going to do, is leading you down a very specific path. And you already know where that path is going to end up. It's going to lead to you living paycheck to paycheck and to you not being ready to retire. So if you want to do things, if you want to have things that other people don't have, you have to be willing to do things that other people won't do. I learned that growing up. From the time I was in elementary school, I knew that if I wanted to be different, I had to take advantage of more opportunities. Otherwise, I was going to be like everybody else in my class. right? If we all learn the same thing during the school year, if I want to know more than them, then I have to learn something additional during the summertime. If I want to have a different experience than them, then I have to experience something different. But if we're all going through doing the same things, I knew that there would never be anything that would differentiate me from them. And when I was 10, I would look at the 15 and the 16-year-olds, and I didn't want to be where they were. So I said, what can I do to make sure that I don't end up like them? And that might sound weird. Actually, as a third grader, I tutored the eighth graders, and they could not spell. As a third grader, I tutored the eighth graders, and they could not spell. And it broke my heart because it was not lost on me that I was helping eighth graders with their writing assignments, right? They had to write papers for their English classes, and I was tutoring them. In what world does that happen? It happens in a world where a 4-year-old makes sure that she gets her education. It happens in a world where a 5-year-old makes sure that she's taking advantage of every opportunity that comes along in kindergarten, every field trip that comes along in first grade, every summer activity, all summer school through first and second grade. I'm already ahead of the game. Already, because I took advantage of everything that came my way. And as a third grader, as I was watching the eighth graders, I knew I do not want that to be me. So if everybody keeps going down this mediocre path, I'm looking and I'm seeing that this is where they end up. What do I do to make sure that I don't end up in that same place? It's very clear. You have to be willing to go places that other people won't go. Where most people wanted to rest during the summer, I was up at 8 o'clock in the morning going to summer programs at elite universities in Chicago, being bused hours away from my house during the summertime every single day. Most kids in my neighborhood wanted to sleep in. They didn't want to do anything during the summer. They didn't want to read. Not only was I going to summer camp every single day during the summer learning advanced calculus, but I was also coming home and reading books all summer. And then I would go out on the block and dance. That's what I would do. So summer camp, learning advanced calculus, come home, read some books, and then I would go out on the street, turn up the music, and me and my friends would dance. We would make up all kinds of dances, and then we would perform at the back to school parade every single year. So this is what my life consisted of, right? So like I said, I was very outgoing. I had a lot of fun. I did a lot of stuff with my friends. We went places and, had good experiences, went to the mall, went to the movies, went to each other's house, had sleepovers. But that wasn't the only thing I was doing, right? Because when I left them, they knew I was on the grind. I was not playing around. I already knew. What did I tell you? Education, money. Education, money. Education leads to money. That's what I was thinking about. I needed to be better. I needed to be quicker. I needed to be more mentally prepared. I was like on this, y'all. Y'all don't even understand how crazy my grind was. Right? And then I went to high school. And in high school, my life was crazy. My life was crazy like you wouldn't believe. During high school, I went through high school like a zombie. It actually was the worst time of my life up until this point because I was experiencing a lot in my family life, doing a lot to help raise my siblings, making sure that they were being educated properly, that they had a good home environment to come to every day, trying to provide that for them. And then also trying to make sure that I was taken care of and that my schoolwork was taken care of. So in high school, about, I would say a good 40% of the time I was late because once I got home, it was helping my siblings with their homework, cleaning up the house, and then doing my homework. I was in the International Baccalaureate program, which is one of the highest level programs, not just in the United States, but in the country. This is a worldwide program, right, that you can find in different places throughout the world. And so I'm doing this, and after cheerleading practice, after helping my siblings with their homework, right, because this is each one teach one, I have to make sure they're taken care of too. After cleaning up the house, Then I would go do my homework. By the time I got to my homework, usually it was 11 o'clock at night or later, as late as midnight. And I would start doing my homework then. I had advanced college level courses. To be honest, my high school courses were more difficult than my college courses. That's how much they prepared me. And so I'm doing this higher level coursework, and I was exhausted every single day. I hardly ever smiled. Most nights I cried into my pillow because there was just a lot of things going on in my life. But even though I was crying into my pillow several nights out of the week, because there are certain things that were happening in my life that I just needed to change, that I just wanted to change, but I didn't have the control to make it change, right? So I could only be responsible for the things that I can control, and the only thing that I could control was me. So it didn't matter what else was going on in my home life. It didn't matter all the other things that were happening that were quite honestly putting me in a state of depression. I still had to be on top of it. And I was on top of it, but I was not happy. So I would go to cheerleading practice. I would come home and I would help my siblings with their homework. And then I would clean up the house, and then I would work on my homework, my own homework, right? And sometimes I was so dedicated that sometimes I would spend 2 hours on a single math problem in probability and statistics. Or I would work on my papers until they were perfect. Perfect. I knew I was going to get an A. That's the level of dedication I had. Now, to be honest, I was usually late. And whether I was going to be at school on Mondays was a toss up. I couldn't juggle everything perfectly, right? So I knew I could get the education that I needed, but I could not make it to school every day. And maintain the level of sanity, at least maintain some level of sanity, right? So I'm trying to juggle as many balls as possible. Extracurricular activities because I needed to get into a top college. My home life because I needed to make sure that my siblings were taken care of. My school life because I needed to maintain a high GPA, right? So all of those things are going on, and it was extremely stressful. But like I said before, it's nothing to a boss. Like, I had already been grinding since I was 4 years old. So my teachers didn't understand. They didn't know what was going on. So they were pretty pissed that I was coming to school late every other day for my first period class. They were upset that a couple Mondays out of the month, they probably wouldn't see me because I had work that I needed to catch up on, right? Because I was doing other things throughout the week. But what I'm trying to communicate to you is that growing up in a world where there was no silver spoon, and there are a lot of things that happened that distracted me, that were distractions from me trying to be my very best and reach my goals. But it's not an excuse. It's the show must go on. I must be great. There's no other option. So when I think about what has allowed me to be where I am today, I know that it is the resolve and the dedication that I built growing up in the tough streets of Chicago, where, parents are struggling too. My parents were struggling. They didn't always have everything figured out. They weren't always the best role models. They didn't do everything that they needed to do, but that couldn't be an excuse. And I thank God for the wisdom that I had that allowed me to know that no matter what, I'm in control. I'm the author of my destiny. It is through my actions that I can will my future into existence. I don't have to be a statistic. And you don't either. There is nothing that you cannot accomplish, no place that is prohibited to you. There are no limits to where you could go or what you can achieve. Let me see what you guys are saying. Headed over to Facebook really quick. Hi, you guys. Hey, Tiffany. Thank you for joining us. Corey, are you on? If you're on, post something so I can know that you're here. But to get back to the conversation at hand, another thing that I learned is that you have to demand. In this life, you have to demand what is yours. Nobody is going to give it to you. People didn't show up and say, hey, Tasha, I know you're having a rough time. Let me help you. Until after the fact, right? When I had already made a name for myself and I was already awesome and fabulous and great, all these people wanted to flock to me and say, how did you do it? How did you do it? What did you do to make it out the hood, right? And some people would even call me an at-risk youth. And I'm like, what do you mean? Why are you calling me an at-risk youth? The only thing that I'm at risk for is being phenomenal. That's the only thing that I'm at risk for. But within their minds, they couldn't even conceive of a young girl from Chicago being able to, from not just from Chicago, but from where I'm from, and being able to accomplish what I've been able to accomplish. Nobody was there when I was going through it, but after I was on the other side, giving my testimony and letting people know, then they wanted to know, what was your secret? How did you do it? So nobody is going to give you anything, right? Sally Mae is not going to show up and say, look, I'm going to just give you a pass on those student loans. So when you want something, you have to demand it. I thank God that I have a mother who showed me what it means to demand what you deserve. My mom would never let anybody treat her less than what she knew she was worth. And today, having that example, I make sure that I don't wait for somebody to say, oh, this is what you deserve. I ask for what I know I deserve. And if nobody is there to give it to me, I just take it by any means necessary. There is always a way. You know the saying, when there's a will, there's a way. That's so true. You have to will your future into existence. And that's what I mean when I say nobody is going to give it to you. This is not, when we say pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? It's not about upward mobility. It's about, actually think about how hard it is. I bet you never really thought about that. What does it actually look like for somebody to pull themselves up by their bootstraps? That's pretty darn impossible. How does that work? But if you want to achieve greatness, that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like doing things that most people think are impossible. When I tell people to do the impossible, I hear people say, I've actually been in arguments on air with people saying, but institutional racism this, but the system that. And I'm like, I really don't care. You can give me every excuse that you have. I do not care. That's not to say that I don't care about institutional racism. I do. I just won't give it to you as an excuse. Instead, as we're moving forward together, then we need to work together to change policy. But it has to happen simultaneously. Everything starts with the individual. Nothing in life starts with policy. It starts with the individual. And you have to know that there is power inside of you that transcends everything that is happening in this world. There is a power inside of you that transcends institutional racism. Nothing. There is no force known to man that is stronger than the force of your belief system. And if you allow it to just propel you forward, you'll move forward. And it won't be easy. I hope I'm not making it sound like I think it's easy. It should be obvious to you that I know it's not easy, but I also know that it's possible. So I want to, before I go, make sure you guys post some questions. If you have any questions for me, post them. And we'll also have an after party in a couple of minutes. I'll probably talk for 5 to 10 more minutes, and then I'm going to hang out with those who wanted to do the after party so that you can ask me questions directly. There is a link in the group, and it has the logo on it, and it says after party. If you want to opt in, you can do so that you can have access to ask me questions, and we can talk directly on the line. For those of you who had already signed up, the number should be in your inbox. We were going to do it at 10, but I'm going a little bit over. So I'm going to close out, and then I'll hang out with you guys for the after party. But in closing, I want to tell you how I started investing, because that's something that I want you to know, that investing is not for the rich. This is not for people who have it all together. I did not know what the heck I was doing when I first started investing. So, I told you that I started off understanding the power of pennies, right? And that grew into more. So by the time I went to high school, I literally had thousands of dollars in the bank. And all of this started with an idea that was planted by a single penny. Had thousands of dollars in the bank, right? So then by the time I went to college, I continued to build upon that. And I went to a seminar one day where there was a professor talking about the difference between investing when you're 20 versus investing when you're 25. And I looked at his presentation and I realized that even though I don't know anything about investing, and even though I'm not a rocket scientist, I do know basic algebra. I do know what you mean when you say I will lose $500,000 to $1 million if I wait 5 years to invest. So I don't know anything else, but I know basic math, and I knew that I didn't want to be $500,000 to $1 million behind. That is a very simple concept that I was able to grasp as a sophomore in college. So that very day, I went back to my dorm room. I went to Google, and I typed in how to open a Roth IRA. That very day, I opened up my first investment asset. I opened up a Roth IRA, and I started investing in it. I had no clue what I was doing. I started investing $50 at first. Then I moved money from my bank account into my Roth IRA account. I would put all of my tax money in there, birthday money, I would contribute into there. My thousands of dollars grew. By the time I graduated college, I had multiple thousands of dollars in the bank, right? And this was something that was very new to me. Nobody in my family, not a single person in my family had ever saved that type of money. All they knew was how to spend. So at this point in my mind, I was balling out of control, right? But I realized that having money is not the same thing as living a lifestyle of having money, because I knew that I had money in the bank, but if I started to spend money that I had in the bank, I would no longer have the money in the bank. And that's where my infamous quote comes from: you can either have money, you can spend money. Because I realized in college that even though I had money in the bank, I was still living like a broke college student. And if I wanted to live like a not broke college student, then I wouldn't have money in the bank anymore. Do you see how this works? I hope so. So then when I graduated college, I went to work for a Fortune 50 company, right? Managing $100 million budgets for them, for some of the biggest brands in the world. It was an amazing experience. I was making more money than I had ever made in my life, and then I decided to quit. I was able to decide to quit after 2 years because I had enough money in the bank to be able to last me over a year. It didn't matter. I left because I wanted to start my business, but it did not matter if anybody ever gave me $1. I could live for a year without depending on anybody else, because I paid attention to the penny, because I paid attention to my education. When the lecturer said, you need to start investing, I didn't think that, oh, that's cute advice. That was really nice of him to say. I'm glad I got to hear him say that. I took that as serious information that I needed to act on. And I hope that you take this as serious information that you need to act on. This is serious. You need to start investing. You need to stop making excuses if you find yourself in that situation. You need to understand that the strongest force in the universe is the one that is inside of you. You need to understand that there is no limit to the things that you can accomplish. You need to understand that there are people who are waiting for you to operate in your excellence. You need to understand that there are people who are waiting for you to become a millionaire, that there are certain things that will never happen in this world until you become a millionaire. Look in your community. You should know that this is true. Look in your community right now. Jay-Z not gonna do it. Beyonce not gonna do it. Oprah not gonna do it. This is not. Nobody else is going to do it. You have to do it. You have to understand that. So when I say, I'm talking about some of the things that I've gone through, and I've never really shared it in this way before. So over time, I'll learn how to craft and share the story. But I hope that you're getting the main nuggets and the main advice. So when I started investing, all I did was understand that action is critical. That action speaks louder than words. That's it. I didn't have a lot of money. I started with $50. I didn't know what I was doing. I started investing in a Roth IRA on the very first day that I learned what a Roth IRA was. I had no clue what was going on. But right now, not only do I have assets in retirement, but I've also been able to build up my real estate portfolio with that very same money that was inspired by a single penny. Like, that blows me away. That blows me away that while I was 10 years old, counting money in my mother's penny bank in one of the poorest neighborhoods in Chicago, all we had was pennies to rub together, that it sparked an idea that let me know that not only could I become a millionaire, but you can too. And so I think about the Wright brothers, when people told them that they would never be able to build a plane, that only birds could be in suspension, that they're the only thing that could fly, that humans would never be able to do that. But they didn't let other people's beliefs stop them. It was only because they believed in something that was inside of them. They believed in their power to create. They literally created something that other people didn't even believe could exist. That is so powerful to me. And that's exactly what I want you to do. There's so many people who think that financial freedom is far away, but it doesn't have to be far away. It doesn't have to be out of your reach, but it is absolutely something that you have to fight for. It is absolutely something that you have to be dedicated to. It's not gonna roll over in your lap. And don't be confused. Just because you have cash flow does not mean that you are not in poverty. Too many people have cash flow but no net worth. The average net worth for Black Americans is $10,000. For our white counterparts, it's $110,000. And for Black middle-aged women, it is $5. We have to do better. The Black buying power is $1.1 trillion. So we are not broke because we do not have the money. We are living in poverty because we are consistently going through cycles that have been passed down through generation to generation. And we need to break that. And the only way to do that is through education and with money. That very thing that I learned as a 10-year-old girl that still rings true with me today. And I believe that if it could work for me, it could also work for you. So thank you guys so much. That is all I have for you. I'm going to head over to the Facebook page. Make sure that if you want to join us for the after party, go ahead and opt in. I'm going to join you guys over there now. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you today. I haven't been looking at myself, so I hope I wasn't all in your face for the whole time, but I hope that you did get something out of this conversation. And thank you for allowing me to share this for the very first time. I'm really excited to share it with more people and to be able to craft craft it and hone in on it in a very impactful and powerful way. Because I think that I could talk all day about the importance of finance and money management, but I think that people really connect with you when they know who you are. And I'm still working on telling people who I am and explaining that story, and it still feels really scary to me. So thank you for allowing me to share it with you guys, the people in my community, for the very first time. I'll be doing it again. I got to get used to this, guys. I got to get used to it. And practice makes permanent. And I want to be able to share my story in an impactful way permanently, so that anytime I meet somebody, my story has the power to transform their situation, so that they can know that if I can do it, they can too. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night. And I'm dialing in right now to catch you for the after party. Bye-bye.